Hello, beloveds. It is Wednesday. It is June the 17th. Miss Jamie took last week off, and I did not post any devotionals. As most of you know, Miss Jamie has kind of some exciting news, some new things happening in the house, and we've already talked about this a little bit. And by hearing Bert talk on Sunday morning and some reminders, we have a new addition in our house. Mr. Brian and I are adopting a beautiful little 3-year-old girl, and we are so excited. And so we have been getting her settled in and making sure that her transition is going well. But tonight brings a new schedule for us. Because I'm trying to get us back to a normal church schedule so that when we are back together, it will kind of all flow into place. We'll all be back to what our normal is. So tonight on Wednesdays, we are going to start by having a short devotional. And then on Sunday morning by 10 a.m., Miss Jamie will have a Sunday school time that will be posted. And it will be somewhat like our Sunday school time. There will be some object lessons. There will be some discussion. There will be opportunities that you can send Miss Jamie maybe a video recording or post on Facebook or send me a message kind of adding to your discussion if you would like. And then Miss Jamie promises that within the next week or so, we're going to have some Zoom calls because I miss seeing your faces. I've gotten to talk to some of you on the phone and gotten to see you out and about, but I want to see your faces. And I know that you want to see each other's faces, that you miss each other. You miss your Sunday school mates, and we want to make sure that you get to see them as well. So yesterday, Tuesday, was every Tuesday I've been started posting a Bible verse of the week. And last week it was be kind to one another. And this week is Hebrews 13:8. And I posted it. If you haven't seen it yet, please check it out. I want you to try to memorize this. This is Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. How awesome. He doesn't change his thoughts or how he feels or how he loves us. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And one of the things that I love about Jesus, one of my most favorite things about Jesus is that during his time, his physical time here on earth, that he was very unconventional. He wasn't normal, and he kind of pushed the boundaries on what normal was. Kind of like we have been lately, haven't we? But in a very different way. Because even Jesus, not against God's law, but against like the laws of the people and the Pharisees and of the world, he kind of broke those laws because of what was best for God's people, for what was best for those that God loved, which was everyone. And so he wanted the best for everyone. And so he would kind of test those laws. He would kind of put them, I wouldn't even say test them. He would put them in their place. And how some of those laws went against God's law. And so Jesus did a lot of unconventional things. He went against the norm, which Miss Jamie loves. I love going against the norm because I love when people show their own diversity and they show their own wonderfulness no matter what. And they show God's love, not worrying about what anybody else will think. And that's what Jesus did all the time. He always showed God's love no matter who was around, no matter what other people thought, no matter if it made him look weird or not typical or unconventional. Jesus always did, because he was showing God's love. That was his job. That's what he knew what his job was here while he was on earth. And one of those times is what we're going to talk about tonight. Tonight we're going to talk about The woman at the well. Now, I want to give you just a little bit of background, not much. Remember, Jesus, during his time of ministry, he had picked 12 people to mentor, right? And those were his disciples. And he was preparing them for ministry because he knew it would not be long before his physical being would no longer be here on earth. And he needed those 12 disciples, after he was gone, to be able to share the good news with everyone. So now, during this time also, there was a group of people who were hated by the Jews. But Jesus so disagreed with this. And we know this is wrong. We don't hate a group of people because of what they look like or where they live or what their occupation is or who they're married to. I mean, we just don't. That is not who we are, and that is not who Jesus wants us to be. So we're going to be in John chapter 4 in verses 1 through 42. This is where you'll find the story of the woman at the well. Okay? And you'll see really quickly as we go into this story how Jesus was quite unconventional. So after the Passover, Jesus had started having some issues with the Pharisees. I mean, the Pharisees and Jesus just did not get along because Jesus kind of put their laws, would question them and say, how does this go with God's law? This is people's law. And so him and the Pharisees just were not meshing. So he decided to leave the area of Judah and he was going to go back to Galilee. Well, during this time, as he's heading back to Galilee, he goes through Samaria. Well, what's the big deal with that, right? I mean, that's what you're wondering. This is where it starts. This is very early on in the story. He's already being very unconventional. And this is very interesting because if you were a good Jew, then you would never go through Samaria. As a matter of fact, no matter where you were going, no matter if Samaria was the quickest way to get there, people would go all the way around. I mean, travel miles and miles and miles out of their way so they wouldn't have to go through Samaria. Because Samaria was filled with these people called Samaritans. And if you were a good Jew, you did not expose yourself to them. Because if you exposed yourself to them, you were tainted. You would have your being a good Jew in question because you just didn't. There were a lot of things about some Samaritans that Jews didn't like, and that just did not make you a good Jew if you were around them, which is so breaks my heart. But anyway, so because of that, a good Jew would never ever travel through Samaria. Like I said, they would go way out of their way to not expose themselves to a Samaritan. But not Jesus. He went right through the area to Jacob's well, to Sychar. It depends on you. There are different pronunciations to this. But I use Sychar. Okay. And there he met a woman. Now this is your second thing. This is the second thing that makes Jesus very unconventional, because this particular woman had a history of not making very good decisions. And the disciples had gone into town during this time for food, and Jesus, when he met her at the well, asked for her for some water. And this really took her by surprise, because first of all, here's Jesus in Samaria. And second, she's a woman. What is he doing talking to her? And third, she is a woman that has made really bad decisions, and he's talking to her. So Jesus was a man, and men normally didn't speak to women of her type because, like I said, she had made some really bad decisions. And Jesus was a Jew, and here he is. He's talking to a woman of Samaria, a Samaritan woman. Okay? So I want you to listen to the conversation, okay, between the woman and between Jesus. I'm going to start with the woman. It says, you, a Jew, are asking me, a Samaritan woman, for water? If you knew who I was, you'd ask me for living water. That's what Jesus said. You have no bucket, and the well is deep. Where do you get this living water? Are you greater than Jacob? He gave us this well. If you drink this water, you will be thirsty again. If you drink the water I give you, then you will never be thirsty again. The water I give becomes a spring and will well up to eternal life. I want some of this living water. I don't want to have to come back and draw water here again. Go get your husband. I don't have a husband. You are right. In fact, you have 5 husbands, and the man you are with now is not your husband. Sir, I think you're a prophet. The woman then proceeded to change the subject and asked Jesus where people should worship God. In Samaria or only in Jerusalem? He responded that the time had come for people to worship in spirit and truth, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter where one worshiped. And then an amazing thing happened. The woman said, I know that the Messiah is coming. And Jesus responded, I am he. The fact that Jesus revealed who he was to a Samaritan woman is so important. It is important because Jesus valued women while living in a very society dominated by men. Women were seen and not heard during Jesus' time on earth. They didn't have a lot of value to the overall community. She was also a Samaritan, which teaches us that Jesus values all people, no matter their culture. She was also a woman who had had 5 husbands. And this teaches us that Jesus values all people, no matter what poor choices that they've made in their life, no matter the bad decisions, no matter the things they have done. Jesus values everyone, values their worth. Now, the disciples at this time returned to Jesus and were amazed. They were probably very concerned to find Jesus speaking to the Samaritan woman. The woman left her water jar and ran to town and said, come meet the man who has told me everything I have ever done. Can this be the Christ? And the whole town went out to meet Jesus. The whole town came out to meet Jesus because of one woman, a Samaritan woman, the Samaritan woman who had made terrible choices. Because of her testimony, because of her story, because she shared what had just happened to her, many of the people believed in Jesus. Have a glass of water. Now, what am I doing? Do you see? Can you see it? I don't know if you can see. I'm flicking the water. That is what happens when you share the story of Jesus. Share your Jesus story. Share your testimony, your experiences When you meet Jesus, you can't help but tell others about what happened. Because when you meet him, oh, beloveds, it's the most amazing thing that can ever happen to you. The living water that happens to you when you meet Jesus, when you have your own Jesus experience, will spread onto the person you tell. So when you tell your story, when you share your experience, when you tell others about Jesus, they can't help but feel it. When the disciples came back to Jesus, they tried to get him to eat food, but he refused. He says, my food is to do the will of God. And he told the disciples to lift up their eyes. And the fields were white with harvest. In other words, the people were ready to hear what he had to say, and the people of the town were on their way. The woman told her Jesus story, and the people came running because they desired to hear the gospel. They desired to hear the good news. Jesus came to this world to be the living water. And as people believed, then they went to others and told their Jesus story. And because of that one woman's testimony, the living water bubbled over and it spread everywhere. Everywhere. So if you aren't telling other people your Jesus story, then you're not allowing others to get the taste